Hey everyone, welcome to the Diabetes Unlocked podcast. I'm Tom.
And I'm Christelle, and between us, we have over 60 years of experience living with type 1 diabetes.
And in this episode, we're talking about our routine for perfect morning blood sugars.
Yep, we'll talk about late night snacking, insulin adjustments, what we eat for breakfast, as well as what we do and don't first thing in the morning.
Yes, that's right. So, whether you're looking to fight the dawn phenomenon or just want to start your day in the ideal range, then this episode is for you. And we'll try to share our real life tips and experiences, as always, to help you out. So, let's get into it.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons why I'm kind of excited about this episode is, and I've told you this before, Tom, is high morning blood sugars, waking up with morning blood sugars that are not in range, or just, seeing them start to creep up must be one of the most annoying things ever. I don't know if you have the same, I always have a physical reaction to it. It's so annoying. I don't know if is that the same for you, or is it just me being extra?
Yeah, I also sort of hate when either when I wake up with high blood sugars, like I said, I wake up and I'm 200, or when I wake up and my blood sugars are perfect, like I'm 100 or even below 100, it's like perfect. And then within an hour of waking up, I spike to 200 and I'm like, why? What's happening? And I feel like there's like these two elements. Before you wake up, something happens, or then right after you wake up, something happens and it sort of shoots your blood sugar up. And sometimes it's just annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how I always say that, I try to not let my diabetes, I try to not attach feelings to numbers, and I really try to do that, but, we're just humans, and sometimes there will be an emotional response. I think for me, it's two things that we're talking about, right? One thing is waking up high, which for me indicates that I've probably been running high for a few hours, and I think that one is one of the annoying ones to me. For the most part, I wear a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, so I'll go back and look. I mean, for me, high overnight, we should probably also talk about what high overnight is. For me, running over 140 a night is high, and so that bothers me. So if I then go back and then I realize, okay, I've been 150 all night, for example, instant annoyance. But I do find that actually, I think I usually know why I have been running high overnight. So that's also why I think I have some different sort of tricks in the bag that can help not prevent that, because I don't think we can prevent high blood sugars, but it can reduce the risk of them.
Absolutely. I think there are things that I know that when I do, having perfect morning blood sugar is relatively easy, but there are other things or situations that when I do certain things and I don't follow like the best possible routine, it's more likely that I will either wake up with high blood sugars. For me, because I'm on a hybrid closed loop system, also I'm using a CGM as you do, as you know, 140 in the morning is like unacceptable. Or running a 140 overnight. Like my target for the nighttime is like between 90 and 100, which I set on in my app for the pump to target. So even a 125 or 130 after waking up is sort of high for me, and it's not like it's not my goal. But I totally feel you, like when I see on that graph blood sugar has been higher the whole night. It's just such a long time, and it's sort of upsetting because that impacts HbA1c more when it's a longer time and stuff like that. I mean, what is like a perfect morning blood sugar for you? Like, what is the number you would love to see every morning when you wake up?
Okay, I want to look at my CGM right now because I know I woke up this morning and I was a happy girl. Let's see. I know I did. That was at 8:15. It was 95. That made me happy. That was like right smack. But
I mean,
the
that's
big
what
thing is,
a healthy person would wake up with, right?
right. Well, non-diabetic, let's say that, because I think I'm healthy.
Agree.
I'm sorry, that's nitpicking wording. I know. The whole thing about word matters. But yeah, I think for the most part, when I do run high all night, I know why. I mean, it's usually because I've deviated from my routine. It most often is because I've done a little bit more aggressive eating at night and haven't managed to correct it before going to bed, or haven't corrected it enough. So it can be very large meals, or it can be it's kind of what we talked about in the last episode, high fat, high carb meals. Those kind of meals can sometimes also make it a little harder because I do use insulin pens. So I can't set a dual bolus, and I don't necessarily set an alarm to wake me up a few hours after a meal. so I can do a second bolus, a second dose. So I think for me, it's mainly change your routine and eating patterns. What are your, like, do you have any main offenders when it comes to overnight high blood sugars, or is it more random?
Yeah, I think when it comes to overnight, it's often what I did in the evening. It used to be when I was younger, I didn't really have my basal or long lasting insulin fine tuned. And so maybe my basal was not optimal and that's why I was high overnight. These days it's relatively fine tuned. And so when I'm in sort of like a standard routine, 80% of the days are kind of the same for me, and I have fine-tuned the overnight basal in my pump, and I should not be high. But the situations when I eat like a more challenging meal, like one of those that we talked about in that episode, high carb, high fat, a pizza or like a just anything really that is high carb, high fat. For that kind of meal, is everything it gets more tricky, and so that's often the reason for being higher or high during the night when I sleep. But it's also
Yeah.
oftentimes when I eat later at night. And so, the meal, although it was not high carb, high fat, it was not fully sort of processed before I fall asleep. And maybe I didn't estimate the insulin dose correctly for that one. And so it takes my system for some time to correct it. But I really, I really wanted to focus in this episode more on the morning. So I think the overnight, usually the thing to blame is what I did before I went to bed. Oftentimes for me that causing high night blood sugar, but not so often morning, because I have the pump, and there's a huge advantage of automated insulin delivery system. Even if your blood sugar is at 200, at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., the system, if the setup is good, if the settings are well fine-tuned, then, you can wake up with a perfect blood sugar still around 100, because the system corrects everything for me. And I realized you don't have this benefit. So for you, I guess, sort of what you said is when you are high in the middle of the night and you're sleeping, it doesn't hit the alert for you to wake you up on your Dexcom, then you might wake up high. And so it's I have a little bit of a unfair advantage with an automated insulin delivery in this situation, I think.
I do set my alarms on Dexcom. Again, we're not promoting any specific that's hard to say, brand, but my CGM just happens to be a Dexcom. I do set the alarm on that one overnight as well to wake me up, because I don't want any nasty surprises. So I do that, and for the most part, it wakes me up and I fix it. Am I always successful? No. Again, I'm human, but for the most part, I am, in the sense that I then wake up and fix it. I think you're absolutely right. The main things are what we eat, but for me, it's also my exercise patterns. So especially since I adjust my long-acting insulin myself, my background insulin, and your pump adjusts it for you, I need to adjust it based on what I'm doing. And since I'm a big fan of resistance training, but I'm also a fan of giving my body the rest it needs, that means that nights after resistance training, I need a different level of basal insulin than nights after rest days. And that can be a little bit complicated sometimes. It took me a while to figure out my patterns for exercise and blood sugar management. But I would say that's the one like non-food related thing that can really make things challenging overnight.
But would you
Now,
say that
possibly,
exercising, but just to clarify, that I understand, are you saying that exercise makes it more challenging to wake up with a good blood sugar, or, perfect blood sugar, or does it make it easier?
I think everyone who just starts out exercising will see that exercise makes diabetes harder initially, because it's gonna change things. And when things change, you need to adapt, and figuring out how to adapt could take a little bit of time. I would say I've done it long enough now that I have a really good idea of what I need to do. Like today I did a heavy leg training. Tonight I'm gonna need less long-acting insulin. If I take my base dose, I'm gonna go low overnight. I don't want that, so I'm gonna take it a little less. But then I also have to factor in that, let's say tomorrow I might take a rest day. Well, I need the base dose instead of the reduced dose. But it's just, for me, it's so hard set now that but again, I don't get it right 100% of the time. Maybe 90% of the time I get it right, because I understand my formula for exercise and diabetes now. So to conclude, yeah, I think it becomes harder initially,
Okay, that's
for
interesting
sure.
because I agree on that part that, you know, before you figure out how to dose insulin, like during the time when you exercise, like when you go for a run or when you're in gym, you need to find a routine for that specific time when you're doing that physical activity. And I agree with, this is hard, especially with the pump. This is hard. You need to, uh, you know, reduce your basal insulin, before and during this time. At least I do. This is not a medical advice. And this is hard, before you figure things out. But then from my experience, so you're specifically talking about morning blood sugar, when I exercise regularly, when I work out regularly, it makes it more likely to be in an optimal range when I wake up in the morning. It's just because I feel or I know for my body, when I exercise regularly, I really am more insulin sensitive. And so
Absolutely.
that automated system in my pump, even when my blood sugar starts to creep up overnight, that system will be able to correct it because I have certain correction factors set there. And when I'm more insulin sensitive during the night, then the system will just correct it. If I didn't work out for the whole week and if I ate, a fatty meal in the evening, that correction factor will just not be enough, and the pump will be doing whatever it can, but it will, not bring the blood sugar down to 100, just because I'm more insulin resistant at that point. So for me, on a pump and automated system, exercise for overnight and morning blood sugar really, really helps me to be in perfect range. It's like one of the one of the building blocks, having the right settings and being sort of physically active regularly. That really helps.
I think it's the same thing because what I'm hearing you say is that you need the right settings and then you need the sort of active routine. But that's the thing for MDI. It's the same thing. We just need to
Mm.
adjust the settings ourselves where your pump does it, right? So do I think again that blood sugars become easier to manage over time with exercise? Absolutely, because you become more insulin sensitive, so you need less insulin to dose, and then there's less risk of sort of misdosing because there's just less insulin to play around with. But I mean, still, every beginning can be challenging, right? Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Do it. It's good for you and it's fun. I think when it comes to exercise, so one thing again is the potential high blood sugars overnight. The other one is feet on the floor or dawn phenomena, where you see blood sugars start to rise in the morning, either in the early morning hours while you're still sleeping or when you wake up and put your feet on the floor. I think for that, exercise can be extremely helpful, both the day before and the day off. I think for that, there's no, let's say, downside to it. It just makes things easier. That's at least my experience.
Just so we are on the same page, I think we are. But dawn phenomenon, when you say that, you're talking about basically blood sugar rising, sort of like during the morning, early AM hours before we wake up, and foot to floor, right after we wake up, that we see that blood sugar spike, which is related to some sort of activities that the body is doing during the night and early in the morning, right? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
I like the way to explain it that, feet on the floor being that once you get up, your body's trying to be helpful. And your body's like, she or he is awake. Yay, let me release glucose from the muscles in the liver to help you get a good start on the day. And that's why you see that blood sugar rise.
Yeah, I actually see this, I would say, all the time. I just have, like, again, this unfair advantage that, my pump or my AID also sees from the CGM, blood sugar starts to rise and it sort of gives me more insulin during that time. But even on top of that, I still, like, I don't struggle with dawn phenomenon because I feel this is something that the automated system can handle on its own without my intervention. But with the foot to floor, I feel it's helpful for me to just go in and do a little microbolus to just add insulin to avoid spiking a bit more than I would want right after waking up, within the first half an hour, 1 hour. So that's what I do. And I have to say, I struggle more with the feet to floor thing or foot to floor than the dawn phenomenon. Is it the same for you or is it different?
It depends on my eating patterns. It really depends on my eating patterns. It's fascinating. So when I eat a more carbohydrate heavy diet overall, I can see more of a rise from around 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes it starts a little later, but it's very distinct. And I mean,
Okay.
believe it's because the body stores this glucose, again, in your muscles and your liver, and it releases that. Whereas if I go through periods where I'm more active, so more depleted, and I'm maybe not eating as carbohydrate heavy, there seems to be less gas in the tank to be released. And also my body is more insulin sensitive. So I can see a direct correlation again between how I'm eating and my activity patterns and dawn phenomena. But absolutely insulin dosing also also plays a part.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like there are these things you can do like without touching the insulin that can still help a lot or that make it everything easier. I feel like if I'm well hydrated, if I get a good night's sleep, if I don't eat too late, if I don't eat 3 hours, before going to bed, if I had that day before some sort of physical activity, then I still do some sort of like insulin intervention, but it's like very minimal. And I don't have to do it at all with the automated insulin delivery system. I will still be in a range. I'll still not spike above 140, like not at all. But when all these things are not present, like when I didn't sleep enough, when I didn't drink enough, when I didn't exercise for the past 2-3 days, then everything sort of like multiplies, and then I have to go in really like heavily with insulin, not just to add, maybe increase the correction factor overnight for the pump to be able to correct to where I want to be, and to do like microbolusing in the morning after waking up, because it's just like my blood sugar is more stubborn in this situation. I feel like doing all these things except for insulin makes everything so much easier with insulin, and then you almost don't have to do anything with an automated system. I feel there are like these two things you can do. If you don't want more insulin, you can do all these things. If you want to have pizza, night out, no sleep, gyros on the way home, then you need to be really creative with insulin, at least on my end.
Love it. Party Tom. I think all of the same that you said, especially sleep. Sleep is a big one for me. If I'm like running on fumes, if it's 5 hours a night kind of situation, or if I'm really jet lagged, everything is chaos. I think two more, like chronic stress. Fortunately, it's something that I'm not really dealing with right now, but I have when I had like really stressful job situations. I feel like that can also impact. And then for me, I don't really know if we talked about this one before. If not, woohoo, something new to talk about. But another big one for me is I eat breakfast in the morning, which you usually do in the morning, obviously. But I usually eat breakfast within an hour of waking up. And that breakfast, I often bolus for that at least half an hour before. So I get insulin rolling and I have my breakfast. And that really helps me with those morning rises. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but yeah, that really works for me.
Let's double click on both of these things. So first, stress. I think I totally agree, because when I worked a corporate job where I had a lot of stress, I would get up, no matter what the blood sugar was, and I would think of going to the office and what I will be doing there. Like, it would just start these thoughts going through my head, and I would, my blood sugar would just start going up, but like no other reason than the stress. And then maybe I had coffee before I left my house, and like all these things sort of spike blood sugar. Or it's like I didn't even eat breakfast. All primarily the stress, but I think also the coffee and just the combination of this stressful situation made my blood sugar go up. And I could walk to the train station maybe 10-15 minutes, which normally when I walk 15 minutes, my blood sugar would not go up. But in this like stressful morning, hustle to get to the office on time for a meeting that will be maybe a stressful meeting, I was just like, I would be 200 before I get to the office. Although like I did all the walking and everything like that, the stress on its own would really work in its own. It was its own world, with the stress. It's really impacted the blood sugar a lot. And I find really interesting what you said about breakfast. Like, you eat breakfast. If I understood correctly, you said you eat breakfast. I think you also mentioned in your video to sort of as a tool to have a good morning blood sugar. Did I get it right? And could you maybe explain that a little bit more?
You got it right. Yeah, I really like the way that Ben Seal explained it. I don't know if you know him. He is a CDCS type 1 himself as well. and nutrition, registered dietitian, so he has all of the right letters. But he described it as when you, in the morning, your body starts releasing glucose. So it's kind of like a faucet that gets turned on for glucose that just gets pumped into your body to help you again. Your body is being helpful. It's very nice. Your body's being helpful trying to get you ready for the day. So one of the things that can turn off that faucet is the combination of insulin and food. So that's why when you then have that meal with a little bit of carbohydrates, it doesn't have to be a lot, but a little bit of carbohydrates and insulin, it can close that faucet and stop blood sugars for like shooting up further without, additional carbohydrates. So I found that to be, I like that explanation. I think to me it makes sense, but that's also how my brain works.
Right.
No, I find that and as far as I understand it, even people who do not use insulin to manage blood sugars can use this trick of eating breakfast to sort of stop the rise.
Does it have to be a low-carb breakfast from your experience, or it doesn't really matter as long as you like dose the right amount of insulin for that breakfast?
Yeah, I mean, most of my standard breakfast that was a lot of plural. My standard breakfast is around, I think lately it's 25 to 30 grams of carbs.
Mm.
And it's mainly, right now I'm eating. You know me, I eat the same thing for an extent.
Okay, let's see if I can get it right. So you eat
Okay.
some sort of Ezekiel bread with egg and cheese now, or something like that. Is that
That was last time.
okay?
Now everything has changed. No, the thing is, I'm traveling in Europe, actually, and I can't really get my deal. So here I shifted over to, I'm eating Greek yogurt. So of course there is some lactose, which is the glucose from the dairy products, and then I'm eating fruits and berries. So
That's a big shift.
it's a big shift. I was like, what makes sense here? I like to have something that's high in protein. So I'm eating strained Greek yogurt that's high in protein, and then something that's high in fiber. That's the fruits and the berries.
Yeah,
It's good.
I'm impressed. So you made such a big change to your routine, Crystal. Going from Ezekiel bread to to Greek yogurt. That's great. Keep it up.
I do that though. I eat the same things for extended period of time. Clearly, I've mentioned the secret enough for you to be like, that is her food. So at one point, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. It's over. Moving on, trying something new. And then I'm sticking with a new thing for a certain amount of time until I'll get deadly tired of that. And yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked, but here in Europe, at least where I live, you can get like a whole grain um, rye bread, which is also, I think it's sort of like similar glucose or GI. What's GI? I'm forgetting. A glycemic index as Ezekiel bread. I think it's like super rich in fiber and relatively low carb for a bread. So maybe you can try that if you haven't, to replace your Ezekiel bread.
I eat it once in a while. But right now, I'm really happy with my yogurt. And it works.
That's okay. That's okay. So I'm actually different when it comes to breakfast. I feel not eating breakfast sort of helps me to have like stable blood sugars in the AM, like the whole AM, because I'm not big on breakfast. I can just get up and start doing whatever I want to do on that day and just not eat until it's like noon or 1 p.m. and then I have like a bigger lunch. And I mean, I don't do it because of my diabetes or because I want to have perfectly stable blood sugar in the whole morning, but it's just like a side effect of not eating breakfast. I realize, okay, my blood sugar is actually great the whole morning because the automated delivery system sort of handles everything because there is no big spikes from the carbs that will be in the breakfast and stuff like that. And as long as I don't have too much stress in the morning, then I can be 90, straight line the whole morning when I don't eat breakfast. But yeah, I'm not saying that people should not eat breakfast.
It's funny because I don't think people should do what works best for them, obviously. I think I'm pretty much eating breakfast my whole life. It was kind of like a thing that I grew up with. Mom made sure there was breakfast. And it's
the most important meal of the day.
At least I think for some of us it is. I mean, also for me, so now it's become part of my routine because also most mornings I get up, I have my breakfast, and then I go to the gym. And I would never go to the gym fasting because for what I do, it makes no sense. I want to have the energy to be able to do my exercises. And so that's not because of diabetes. That's because I want to build muscles. So it's different things, right? It's different things that drives it. It just happens to work out from a blood sugar perspective as well.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, if you were to pinpoint the most important, what is what are the most important, let's say 3 most important tools or most important strategies that you use to have good morning blood sugar or whatever it is for you, like before you eat breakfast and after? If you were to like point to just maybe 3, what would it be for you? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe just to get a sense of how these things, because we mentioned a lot of things, but which ones are the most important for you?
Most important is getting my insulin right. So that both includes long acting and rapid acting. I'd say insulin, obviously, because we don't have an insulin production, getting that timed in, and that's both from the evening before as well as the morning. Movement and hydration. I can deal with blood sugars with the right amount of insulin without breakfast. I can figure that out. I think it's easier with breakfast, but hydration, if I'm not hydrated, throws everything into chaos. So I start my mornings with something to drink.
Okay, so it's the right amount of insulin, hydration, and movement. And when you say the right amount of insulin, do you have like a specific strategy? I know you already talked about like you have a different way of calculating the dose of the long-lasting insulin for the days when you are, let's say, after different activity. But is there like a specific way you dose that long-lasting insulin? Like I think in one of the previous episodes you mentioned you dose half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening. Do you still do that? And does this help you with the morning blood sugars as well?
So I do split it. I don't split it 50-50. And I also want to say, I find before somebody goes, tries it out for themselves, talk to your medical person, team, and also know that different types of insulin, long-acting insulin, would impact you differently. So I was on Levemir for the longest time, and that one I had down to science. I knew what to take. It worked perfectly for me. That was discontinued. Such a bummer. So now I'm on something called Basligar. It's the same kind of the same equivalent to Lantus. What I do there is, and with my current routine, I take 11 units in the morning, 9 a.m., and I take between 1 and 3 units before bed. So I don't space it out exactly at the 12 hours, but what I do in the evening, I vary that one depending on my activity level and my carb intake. So have I had like a large carb meal, or again, our high fat, high carb, I might do 3 units at night. Have I not, have I just eaten normally, and have I exercised that day, I might take it all the way down to 1, depending on also where my blood sugars are at before I go to bed. So for me, well, it's weird. It's only 3 units that I'm flexing between. Is it 3 or is it 1 unit? So it's actually not a lot, but it makes a huge difference. Taking 3 units at night sometimes means 3 or 4 lows overnight. So it can make a huge difference for me. And not taking anything at night means that I start to rise around 4 a.m. That is annoying.
Yeah, but it's so interesting or almost funny how you are almost doing the same thing I'm doing with my insulin pump, or what my pump is doing for me, that you're doing the same with your basal, because you say, okay, if I have a large meal in the evening, I will do 3 units. If I had maybe a lot of like resistance training on that day, you will just do 1 unit. Well, at the end of the day, it just means you will have more or less insulin working during the night, right? If you do 1 unit, you will have less insulin working than when you do 3, you will have a lot. And I sort of do something similar, because what I do is I have some sort of like standard settings for my overnight in my system. And the system I use is Loop. It's in a way similar to Tandem. So I have certain like basal background insulin that I manually set to be certain number of units. I think I have 0.7 units per hour every hour during the night. And this is my baseline. I don't change it, but what I change sometimes is the correction factor. So what I do is when I have very active day, then I need to be careful with that correction factor. I don't touch it. I keep it at the baseline, and it corrects doesn't correct very aggressively, right? So it's running that baseline insulin, and then when it sees I'm starting to drop, it shuts off that baseline insulin, and then comes back on whenever it's sort of safe. And that correction only kicks in when I would be going up. But after a day of full of working out or hiking or anything, I will not be going up during the night. I will be going down. But when I don't do anything all day, I sit on my butt in the office, and then I eat a huge plate of pasta like 9 p.m. and go to bed at 10 p.m. Then I'm just not able to cover it solely with like the premium bolus, the dinner, and I need some sort of like additional tool to manage to put more insulin in overnight. And so what I do is move that correction factor to a lot stronger and more aggressive. So the baseline would be still the same, but the correction factor would kick in whenever it sees I'm starting to go up. It would kick in quite aggressively, and I can achieve the same by extended bolus. It's sort of like different tools you can use with the pump. But at the end of the day, I'm doing the same thing as you're doing. I'm just giving myself more insulin overnight when I have more food to be digested overnight, and when I just had a very physically active day, I give myself less insulin overnight. So we're doing it completely different ways, but we're sort of in a way doing the same thing. Different medication, different insulin, different tools, but it's very similar, right?
It is. It is. So can we, to use our favorite expression, double click on it. So were you saying that, so two things. Were you saying that you adjust your correction yourself?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And so I think everyone who's listening would love to hear, first of all, what exactly do you mean by correction factor? And then how do you decide what it's going to be? Do you have like a set few correction factors that you use, or do you do some sort of analytics to figure out what it is, or how do you get there?
Well, I have a correction factor that is sort of like my standard correction for the daytime and for nighttime. And what correction factor, what it is basically, it's just a number by how many milligrams per deciliter or millimoles per liter 1 unit of insulin will bring the blood sugar down. So my correction factor during the day is 100 milligrams per deciliter, or approximately 5.5 millimole, which means if during the day I want to bring my blood sugar down by 100 milligrams per deciliter, I do a correction of 1 unit, or the system does it for me, right? At night, I am a lot more aggressive, so I have like 70, I think, which is the baseline, which means 1 unit of insulin corrects by 70 milligrams per deciliter. That's actually not true, but I just want to be more aggressive overnight because I know I'm not gonna be physically active, and I know I can be more aggressive with corrections overnight compared to during the daytime. Because during the daytime, I can walk around, I can just suddenly start moving, and then when I have too much insulin on board, I will go low. At night, it doesn't happen that much. But after a day of full of physical activity, I don't want to be that aggressive with that correction factor. I think I already said that. I just want to bring it up to maybe 100, just to be on the safe side, to not go low overnight, because it can easily happen, if you know what I mean. And I think you asked one more thing, and I forgot what it was. Or did I answer what what you were asking?
Oh, kind of. But what I was saying is, when you need to adjust it, do you have some sort of genius, mystical calculation that you use?
I mean,
Or do you just like,
it's all trial and error. I know for normal day, the overnight correction factor is 70. That works with the system I'm using right now, with the insulin I'm using right now, with like current weight, everything. So right now, this is the baseline, but I can go up to 100 in those days when I know it could be too aggressive, and I can go to 50 after eating late dinner, this high in fat, if you know what I mean. So I just know I want the pump to be correcting a lot more aggressively after this kind of dinner, because I just know I need that insulin later on. So there's no magic formula. It's just all like sort of like judgment and trial and error, basically.
it's interesting. And I know this is not really the topic of today, is how to set your correction factor, but I think it's so fascinating because how much insulin you need also depends on, as you just pointed out, weight and other factors like that. I basically found, though, that my correction factor has been in the same ballpark regardless of my size. And my size has gone up and down quite a bit, but
Yeah.
I think the only thing I really learned now is that my correction factor before bed is not as it is during the day. Too many lows around like 1 a.m. And I finally taught me, like, don't take as much insulin before bed. Because I'm one of those people, rather take enough insulin to get down into range than being a little bit careful and then ending up with a high blood sugar overnight. So unfortunately, that meant
Yeah.
somewhat of a learning curve, but too many lows overnight.
Yeah, I mean, a correction factor should be set by a medical professional, and it's just sometimes I just know I need to change it for tonight or tomorrow night for like specific reason. And I just, from my experience, I can make that judgment call myself because I know I need this. But I just want to say one more thing because I don't want to confuse anyone who is listening. The fact that I set a correction factor in my hybrid closed loop system doesn't necessarily mean this is my actual correction factor. I'm just using it as a tool to be more aggressive or less aggressive with the insulin delivery. So my correction factor after eating pizza is probably not 50, but I just want to be more aggressive because I know I will be going high. And I just want that system to work harder for a few hours, if you know what I mean. So it doesn't necessarily mean that my correction factor changes. It just means that I want to be more aggressive or less aggressive, if that makes sense. So these two things do not equal always in my case. Hope this is not too technical, like too difficult. Yeah. Situational, exactly.
It's situational. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's very different from looking at your plate and then estimating, hey, for like a normal meal, I might need, let's say, 3 units, but because of whatever situation that's going on today or what's on the plate, I might need 4 or I might need 2. So I really think that that's one of the cornerstones to being successful in managing your blood sugars is to learn the nuances. So I agree, yes, medical team should be the ones setting your rates and all that. But I also think it's important to discuss with your medical team, well, okay, how do you then get to those nuances? And then at one point, I don't know about you, Tom, but my endo and I don't talk about correction factors. We don't talk about part ratios because I do all that by myself. We talk about broader picture.
Yeah, I have to say that I never had such an early conversation about correction factors or like how I decide on my bolus with my endocrinologist as I have with you or like some other people who live with diabetes. There's just not enough time to go that deep. But when you watch YouTube videos and when you just follow people on social media, it's like mind blowing how much thought goes into some decisions. And I learned like all these correction factor things I didn't learn from my endo. I learned from the loop community, basically from videos, how they explain how they do things, how they decide on these correction factors, and it makes total sense for me. And I just apply it to on myself. Yeah, it's tricky. I think there's just not enough time with most endocrinologists to go deep enough to gain such a detailed knowledge that you can get from just talking to people who are trial error 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah. And still, I mean, I think our medical professionals can give us guidance and they can give us broad strokes and generalizations, but unless they sit down and we have very detailed notes and we can go through every like decision and then start to come up with hypotheses and then try them out. I mean, to your point, there's no time for that. So that's something we have to do by ourselves.
Yeah.
But
can we move on to the second thing that you said was important for perfect morning blood sugar? That was drink enough water or something like that. Does it mean drinking a glass of water before you go to bed and then drinking a glass of water when you wake up? Or is there like something specific you do to get enough? Or do you measure how much you drink during the day?
I don't, but I have my emotional support bottles that I bring to everywhere. To anyone who's just listening, I'm hugging out my water bottle. So I always have my water bottle with me. It's funny, when I work corporate America, I would drive to work every morning, so I'd be driving an hour. And I would usually go to one of these big ones in the car, which meant that if I got stuck in traffic, I was in trouble. That kind of set a routine for me of just like reaching for the water bottle all the time. So I try to do it first thing in the morning. I take a few gulps of water. Right now, I'm also trying to add more fiber to my diet by drinking psyllium husks. And that requires about 8 ounces of water. So I do that in the morning. I do that in the evenings. Actually, right now, and for the last 3 weeks, I know I'm getting at least 8 ounces plus before bed and in the morning when I wake up. And then I drink at least 1 bottle of these while at the gym. I'm definitely hitting like the general rule of thumb of 2 liters plus a day, for sure, but not overly structured.
I feel for me, it does not have that much impact. I think we talked about it in a previous episode when we were talking like, what are those factors that impact us the most? And you brought up water and I was like, really? I mean, for me, it's not that I don't feel like it's that significant. But since we recorded this, of course, I started to drink more because I'm like, maybe, maybe that there is something missing. And I didn't notice any difference, but I just do like now intentionally in the morning when I wake up because I anyway need to take like a medication that I take. Like it's like a pill that I need to drink water. So I don't just drink like a little bit of water, but I drink a full glass. So that I do that. And before going to bed, I do another glass, but it's just a small glass because I don't want to have to wake up in the middle of the night too many times. I think I started doing that after we recorded that video, but I'm not sure if I hit the 2 liter per day. I probably do most of the days. And the last one was, what was the last one? You said movement. Yeah, you're in the gym almost every day, right? So I don't have to ask what the routine is.
Well, I mean, right, it depends. So right now it's summer and I am in Europe. And when the weather is nice, we're in Northern Europe and Scandinavia. When the weather is nice, which is not every day because, again, Scandinavia, my husband and I prioritize walking. And we go for these massive walks. And I know I also do that at home in Miami, but right now it's like hypercharged a little bit more. When I go for walks, I don't go to the gym. I'm not double dipping like that. So it's a good combination of resistance training and just walking.
Yeah, that's great.
And it impacts my blood sugars very differently. So a full day of walking won't necessarily impact me as much overnight. However, and this is an interesting observation, like an evening walk right before bed will impact me overnight. I
Okay.
don't know if you notice that as well, but it kind of depends on what time of day. I know. It caught me by surprise a little bit.
I feel like it doesn't matter when I walk, and with the pump, it's just again might be a little bit of like the nuance of a pump versus not being on a pump. But I just know when I walk, I usually start going low at some point. If I didn't shut off the insulin delivery like at least an hour ahead of walking. So and I feel like it doesn't matter what time of day it is, and I feel like there is it's like a cardio activity, and it usually doesn't have much impact in like a longer term. I feel like overnight, even if I walk before bed, overnight it would not have much impact. But I don't really know. I think the impact is so small that I don't even recognize as it. There's a lot of cardio activity that I'm doing these days, and because my 4-year-old is riding a bike now, but she's quite slow on a bike, so I take my inline skates and we go together about the same speed, and that's actually great. I think it's about the same equivalent of your walk. Like I do the same sort of cardio, but it's more entertaining on the inline skates. So that's what I did last night before going to bed, sort of like I don't know 8 p.m. But I didn't see any like overnight big impact.
I love that you do that with your daughter. That's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you have to find something that both of us enjoy, right? And it's like,
Absolutely.
given the age difference, usually the things they want to do are not always that entertaining. Yeah. Like for them it is, but for you it might get like repetitive when you have to I don't know, pack bags for vacation 3 times a day and pretend we are going on vacation.
And I love that. Well, it's interesting about what you said about blood sugars dropping during cardio. So walking is cardio as well because your heart rate.
Yeah.
When I use Levemir, I used to be able to go for hikes hours and hours and hours and not see a blood sugar drop. And I was always like, why anyone ever would want to go on an insulin pump where you have rapid acting insulin going 24/7, I do not understand because of, that, not just because of that, but that was kind of one of my main switching over to Basiligar. After 2 hours, I start to drop, which again, I know it's a long walk, but that frustrates the heck out of me. So it also depends on which time of the long-acting insulin people are using. I think for my theory with the walking right before bed is still to the depletion part I talked about earlier. I feel like if I burn a lot of the glucose that's stored in the body, I know I'm not going to burn all of it, but if I burn some of it off, there's going to be less to be released into the bloodstream overnight. But that's kind of my own home brewed theory because a walk in the afternoon doesn't impact me overnight either.
Yeah. I understand now, but I would have never go that far in my thought process. This is too scientific for me. So thank you for this. Is interesting, but I would have never thought of that. Like for me, this is too complex to go that far in my thinking. I'm just walking, I go down, I go low. And being in the gym lifting weights, I will go low at night. That's as far as I go in my thought process. Mm. Okay, I'm just looking at my list what I had because I know I highlighted like the
Wait, so we have mine. Mine was insulin. It was water, not just drink. You're not drinking alcohol in the morning. It's just water and then movement. What are your threes? Are they different from mine? I know the water is not on yours. So
yeah. So when it comes to waking up with perfect blood sugar, I know like the two most important things probably is that I don't eat too much too late. I just put it like very generic way. Like if I eat too much too late, it's not ideal. Doesn't help. Makes it more difficult. And then really, fine tuning the insulin, the basal insulin overnight to what I need. Like I think these two things are the most important ones for me. So in other words, even if I eat too much too late, I can still get the insulin right exactly as I need to. But even with an automated insulin delivery system, it's pretty hard. So when these two things happen, even if when the other things don't go that well, these two are like the building blocks, I think. And then one, after I wake up, if I want perfect blood sugar all morning long, I just don't eat breakfast. I don't do it in this logic, like I just don't eat breakfast because I don't want to. And then the consequence of it is like perfect AM straight line. But I think I could also reverse it. If I really need perfect straight line in the AM, I would not eat breakfast and it would probably happen. So these three things I think have the biggest impact for me. But then when I do eat breakfast, I could eat something that's like again easier to bolus for. There's more fiber, more protein. I think that would be a replacement for no breakfast if I wanted to eat breakfast and I wanted to have like perfect straight line. But yeah, I think these are the three
what would
ones
be
for
the
me.
perfect breakfast?
I mean, I guess shakshuka. Shakshuka, shakshuka?
Oh, it's that like it's a dish, right? So with a lot of
Yeah,
tomatoes and eggs.
yeah,
Am I getting it
yeah.
right? Am I right?
Yes,
Yeah, I know what it is.
yeah. It's like a Mediterranean style. It's made of tomatoes,
Everybody else might not.
peppers. Yeah, it's like tomatoes, peppers, onion in a pan with some herbs, and then some eggs that you cook in this mixture. So it's like really delicious. It's like relatively low carb and a lot of fiber, and there's some protein as well. It's like I think it's a balanced meal. So to eat with like a slice of bread, that's I think a really nice balanced breakfast that I know how to bolus for. I don't have to pre-bolus too much, and it works. That's the perfect breakfast. Secret Tom's breakfast.
In our next episode, Tom will be demonstrating how to make this dish, right?
Yes, yes, we can do that. I'll bring my apron and
To cooking.
I can even cook it here. We can turn it into a cooking show.
Okay, I think we covered all of mine. Do you have any left on your list?
I don't know, but I will have a look in a second. But first, I have a question for you. Because I think I did some research before we started recording. I looked at some other sources and I found apple cider vinegar, like people saying, what helps with morning blood sugar is drinking apple cider vinegar. I know you did an experiment. You made a video about this. So I thought I would ask you if that helped with morning blood sugar specifically, if you saw any impact or if it's just one of those things that people say on the internet, like cinnamon can treat diabetes. Is it one of those, or does it actually work?
The thing is, I don't think you can, compare it to cinnamon. Cinnamon tastes great, but doesn't really have any blood sugar impact. I found that apple cider vinegar made a minimal positive impact. So it was interesting. I did see some results that was a little unexpected. And kind of my conclusion from it was, hey, I might have seen a little bit of a positive impact because I was paying more attention. That could have been, again, it wasn't a clinical study and it wasn't a close environment and all that. But it seemed like there might be a correlation between me drinking it in the evening and seeing more, let's say, pleasant blood sugars overnight. So I think my conclusion was, why not, right? And then I had this good friend who told me to just remember to flush my mouth with water after. I think his name starts with a T, to protect my teeth. And that,
Who was he?
yeah, I don't know.
That must have been me.
Very handsome dude with glasses.
Yeah, that must have been me. Yeah, you should definitely do that because too much acid is not good for your animal. That's correct.
Yeah, exactly. So have you
Yeah.
tried it?
I mean, I tried, but I don't really see any impact, to be honest, or like very, very minimal impact. And I think it's really difficult to break down all the other factors and just look in isolation how apple cider vinegar impacts my blood sugar. Like it's really hard to say, okay, was this apple cider vinegar, or was this I drank more water, or I did more exercise that day. It's really hard to separate these things. I think you would have to have like super isolated in like exactly the same day, and that's just hard to really test this one for me. But there is actually what I have on my list is, and this is something that goes again for not the overnight blood sugar, but for the blood sugar situation after waking up, is to sort of like really use the CGM actively and look at it actively, an hour or an hour and a half into my day to see like what kind of day this is. I feel like not every day is different, and there are sometimes I look at my CGM after getting to the office, like working an hour at my desk. I look at my CGM and I see, oh, this is a good day. My blood sugar is where it should be. And sometimes I look at the CGM about the same time, and my blood sugar is like rising, and it's, I don't know, 130, 140, and it's going up. And I'm like, okay, so this is the day when I'm like more insulin resistant. And at that situation, I can sort of step in and act, I would maybe be more aggressive with my basal during the morning hours. And I feel like it doesn't take that much mental energy to look at the CGM 1 hour into my day and do something when it seems that like, oh, this is one of those days. Do you do something like that too, or is it just a Tom weird thing?
I think that's solid advice, actually, because again, our body, we don't know everything that's going on in our bodies. And as we talked about in a different episode, up to 42 plus things can impact blood sugars and all these good things. So I don't think that's kind of our lifesaver in the sense that if we don't know what's going on, maybe you don't know you're dehydrated, Tom, on some of those days where you see your blood sugars shoot up, right? So your CGM is giving you a heads up.
Yeah, yeah. And I think wearing a CGM, whoever can afford it or is in the situation where they can have a CGM. But when it comes to morning blood sugar, I think it can be really helpful, because really the main tool, we haven't talked about it at all, to sort of figure out the overnight blood sugar and the morning blood sugar, is to actually have some sort of logbook, for example, the Crystal, the one that you can buy from Crystal, and where you can take notes, of what you're doing during the day and how the blood sugar is trending, and what's your, blood sugar before going to bed and waking up. I think without CGM, it's like difficult, but with CGM, you have that, exactly what was happening overnight, like when it started spiking. Was it at 2 a.m.? Was it at 4 a.m.? Was it at midnight? And I think when there is like a trend that repeats every day, then it's probably a good idea to think about, why is this happening, and can I do something different to stop it from happening? It's possible to do it without CGM, but I think, getting up in the middle of the night every 2 hours and checking your blood sugar, kind of like changing the natural thing that you are doing every night, and that's sleeping. So I think CGM is really good. Even like 1 or 2 sensors for figuring out overnight blood sugars can be a great tool. We haven't talked about it because I think we just use it and we don't we don't see it as such a great tool because we're just used to it. But it's one of those tools that probably should have been number one to get to perfect blood sugar, is a CGM. No commercial for Dexcom or Abbott, but in my opinion, it's actually one of those tools that help a lot, taking notes and using a CGM.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I completely. So I actually, I don't know if you get a lot of questions about this as well, but I do. Where people who do not use CGMs get really frustrated, and I can feel the frustration, because you go to bed with let's say blood sugar 100, you wake up 180 or higher. And people are like, what the heck? I didn't eat. And again, if you don't have a CGM that shows you, for example, that you are in range at the 100 until 3 a.m. and it starts to shoot up, then you don't know that it was the impact of a dawn phenomena, for example. And you don't necessarily know what to do about it either. So it's a great tool. I would say if you can't afford it, if you don't have access to it, ask your doctor if they might have a sample. Or both Dexcom and Libre offers a free trial sensor. You'll only get one though, and you still need a prescription if you're in the state. But there are different options.
Yeah. And I think really looking at the trend from the CGM, which is like a cumulative over, I don't know, 2-week period or 4-week period. If you see there's like a clear trend over a longer period of time, then it's like a signal that maybe I need more insulin during the night. Maybe I need a more aggressive correction factor during the night, or maybe I just need a higher baseline, or if I'm just spiking right after waking up every day, then maybe I just need like a little microdose right after I wake up, which in my case I probably need both, and I'm already doing it. But I think that cumulative graph can give a good indication on what's happening most days. So what else did we forget, Crystal?
Well, I mean, we have one more point I have one more point to make, I guess, about so long-acting insulin. If you're injecting long-acting insulin like I am, it's not just about the dose, because sometimes if you see that, my experience is that if you see that you go high in the early hours and you just up your long-acting insulin dose in the evening, you end up going low and then still go high early on. So in my experience, it's also a good idea to look at, well, is it also about timing? So that's actually one of the reasons why, as I said, I take my morning dose at 9 a.m., but I don't take my evening dose until very close to bedtime. The reason for that is if I take it at 9 p.m., then it's going to be at its most effective. It's going to peak at a time where I don't need it to peak. I need it to be as most effective in the early morning hours, not at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. So for me, timing has also made a huge difference. But again, it also depends on which kind of long-acting insulin you have.
That's a great point, because what you're doing is you're trying to find the peak when it's most active and align it with when you most need it. I remember doing it with insulin pump when I was on a different pump that was not connected to a CGM. I know that I had sort of like a higher background insulin between like 4 and 7 a.m. to sort of offset that morning spike. I don't do it anymore because now the pump sort of does it for me, but I think, yeah, it's something we forgot to say when we were, you had it on your list, but I didn't realize, okay, this is actually what matters a lot. And you can distribute the long-lasting insulin this way. Because every time I was taking long-lasting, I was usually doing like a 12-hour in between. I never thought about doing it this way, but it's a great idea. Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Okay. And do you have something else?
I don't. I know some people get really impacted by heat. So that might also be, some of you might have seen me like moving around. Those of you who are looking, it's because it's kind of warm where I'm at. I can be very dramatic. Uh, I'm trying to be discreet here. I just realized once in a while, it's like if the fan is coming up, my hair is moving. But I think if you are one of those people who see a lot of impact from heat, that might also be something to take into consideration. I'm not sure I do. I tend to run a little higher, I think, when it gets really hot. But I have to be in the sun, and usually early in the morning, I'm not in the sun. How about you?
No, I'm not in the sun. I don't like sun too much. I usually try to hide from the sun. No, I mean no, let me rephrase. I like sun, but not when it's shining on me, because my bald head is very sensitive to direct sunlight. I prefer to stay in the shade and just watch, just observe.
What's the sun? No, that's fair. That is fair.
Is there anything else on your list of strategies?
I think I keep saying my list is empty and then I remember something, but there's nothing important enough for me to remember it at this point. How about that?
Okay. No, it's fair. I think I learned quite a few things from you in this episode, as always. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, and I hope that our listeners also found it interesting or helpful. And please, if you are still watching, let us know in the comments if you have any strategy or any routine that helps you with morning blood sugars. Keep the morning blood sugar in the optimal range, and if there are any things that we didn't talk about that help you, we would love to learn from you. So put it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because we will have another episode coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I think right back at you, Tom. I always learn from you, and I really appreciate our conversations. So thank you.
Thank you, Christoph. Ciao.
Bye-bye.